We are turning now to a different company. We've been following the unfolding drama at Olympus very closely here at Bloomberg. And the fallout from the recent admission of guilt is global. Take a look at this. Talk about a tangled web. Well, it's a tangled web of investigations and lawsuits that have been woven since last week when the company admitted to masking investment losses close to $1 billion that actually date back to the 1990s. Well, joining us now is former federal prosecutor Doug Burns. He has prosecuted and defended SEC cases, white-collar crime and fraud for more than 2 decades. Doug, always great to have you here on Street Smart. And I want to pull up that tangled web once again, because take a look at this, right? We have the UK Office of Serious Fraud. We have the FBI, right? We also have over in Japan, the Japanese sort of regulators looking at this. And then we have a group of Japanese shareholders that are demanding that the auditor sue the firm's director. And then here in the U.S., now we have 2 different, I think, shareholder lawsuits that are class action lawsuits. So break this down. Have you ever seen this in your experience?
Well, you see international cases, but this one really is a little unusual because, as you say, I mean, the CEO was, based in England, and then, of course, the company is Japanese, trades on Japanese exchanges, but the ADRs trade on U.S. exchanges. So the case is all over the place. Start with the United States. A class action lawsuit was filed in federal court in Pennsylvania. I took a brief look at the complaint, and basically it is what you've been reporting. In other words, the company, Olympus, did a $2 billion takeover of an entity, and normally they would pay 1 to 2% for advisory fees, companies advising them in connection with the takeover. Here, the CEO of Olympus, Michael Woodford, who's appeared on Bloomberg, turned around and has uncovered a whole web, which is that they paid something like $687 million to advisors. And I put that in quotes because it's a very sort of nebulous story that has to be unraveled. The advisors, the money went to the Cayman Islands, an entity affiliated in name with those advisors, but a little bit different. And now what regulators want to figure out is, wait a minute, what happened? The lawsuit alleges, specifically, to keep it simple, that those weren't really advisory fees. Those were fees to mask, as you said earlier, prior losses in securities. So sort of in simple English, make it look like we paid $687, but we really used those funds for another purpose.
Right. So, Doug, in this case, though, we had this stunning admission by the current management at the firm to say that, all those things we were denying for the last several weeks, well, we figured out they were actually right, and it's probably a little worse than people may have expected. So isn't that a slam dunk for the shareholders here? Meanwhile, the shares are down about 70% year to date. The ADRs and the Japanese listed shares seems to be moving in opposite direction right now, but that may have something to do with these lawsuits.
Usually we talk about the confluence of public relations and law, and politics, but not in this case. But here, I think you're talking about the confluence of public relations, law, and cultural aspects. So, in other words, as you've reported, they made these genuine, heartfelt statements, accompanied literally with physical bowing gestures. But the fact of the matter is, to those schooled in American jurisprudence and the rhetoric that we usually throw around, it's like you don't really make admissions of wrongdoing under our constitutional system, but they appear to have done that. However, I still think they're going to parse it out with finer points on the pencil, and they're going to turn around and say that it's not really criminal wrongdoing. And what we meant is that, maybe there was some malfeasance, but they will continue to defend it.
Okay, well, more to come certainly on this. Doug, appreciate you sharing your insight. Former federal prosecutor Doug Burns, little insight into what is happening at Olympus and a number of their investigations and lawsuits. We're going to be